Welcome to the Marvy Woods Football Academy podcast. In this season, I'm going to be speaking to academy managers from the Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two, and some Scottish clubs. As an academy parent myself, I want to bring some insight into how these academies are being run. I find that it's easy to approach coaches. I hear from players, ex-players, and parents on many platforms about their experiences in academies. But I do not hear from academy managers. This is why I want to do this season. If you think first team managers have playing staff of 18 to 25, whereas academy managers have a playing staff of over 100. That could be from the under 9s to the under 18s. These are people who are so powerful, but they just seem like these men in grey suits or women in grey suits that you just never get to hear from. So what I want to do is I want to bring to you, the listener, what they think, what they want to sign, and what they are looking for in these academies. So if you like this episode, don't just watch and keep it to yourself. Subscribe to see more and spread the word. Welcome to the Marvy Woods Football Academy podcast. Today I'm joined by a guest, Mr. Dom Knighton from Cambridge United, Academy Manager. Hi Dom, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Good to see you, Marv.
Great to have you on. I normally like to ask people questions from the start, so we go back to how it started to where we are today. Did you ever play professional football for an academy at all, or school of excellence?
Yes, I was in a centre of excellence. I was actually at Rushton and Diamonds.
Oh, wow.
Before the club went out of existence and before it was reformed by the fans. So I spent a period of time at Rushton.
Oh, wow. How old was you when you got there?
So I joined at 14 years of age. I was fairly late into the academy, but yeah, I've enjoyed my time there, and it was certainly a brilliant grounding for future career paths, I guess.
Yeah. Was it a trial? Did you have a trial at all?
Yeah, so I went in on trial and then was successfully signed. So yeah, my entry route into that was a trial. Yeah, I was actually probably quite unique because I was a goalkeeper. I was taken in by Tony Godden, who was the goalkeeping coach for the first team at the time, but still had to go through that process, which was brilliant. But yeah, look back on that time really fondly.
Football was the dream then?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time, like everyone says, it was a dream. I generally thought that at the time to go on and have a playing career. But as things naturally progressed, I soon realised that the bottom line was I wasn't good enough. But I loved the game. I loved the aspects around the game. I love the social side of it and the opportunities that comes from it. So yeah, at the time it was the dream. And as time went on, I think the dream was just to be in football. Obviously very fortunate to still be doing that as of today.
When did you leave Rushton?
So I actually left at the end of my under 16 season. I wasn't offered a scholarship. I was offered the opportunity to continue, I believe it was schoolboy forms, but made the decision not to do that. And came out of academy football at that point, didn't get my scholarship and left at the end of the under 16 season.
Did you have any injuries at all?
No serious injuries. No. You
didn't have to deal with none of that?
No.
Did you see any boys in the age groups at the time you was there? I guess it was 2-3 years. Did you see any boys who you thought were really talented that got released at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Both there and since, really. Yeah, I think that's been a common theme that you've seen talented boys that probably at the time, and when you're sort of less educated, you almost think it's guaranteed that they're going to go on and progress and have a career. Unfortunately, that then doesn't materialise, and you certainly see a lot more that don't continue than do.
And what was it at that time that you think was the reason for them not carrying on?
A number of things, I think. Firstly and foremost, the crux of it, I can see it now and probably didn't at the time, but I wasn't good enough. That is the brutality of it. And you're certainly not in the moment ready to accept that. There was other contributing factors. They brought in another goalkeeper who I believe was 1 or 2 years older than me. They brought him in at under 16s, Joe Day, who's still having a career now and has had a very good career playing for a number of EFL football clubs. So he had a far greater ceiling than me and had far more sort of attributes that you need to go on and have a career in the game, not just the stuff that you see in terms of the performance, but the mentality, the ability to do the stuff behind the scenes that people don't see. They were probably, two of the defining factors. One, I wasn't good enough, and two, that they brought someone in that was better.
Who used to take you to the games?
So it was my mum predominantly. My mum was my biggest support network. Rushton had a number of trials at Leicester City, Nottingham Forest, and it was always mum that would sort of ferry me around in the car and get to places ridiculously early to avoid being late. But that was my biggest support network, and obviously allowed me to experience the things that I did.
So did you have any of the car conversations? I normally ask about car conversations. If you didn't perform to the required standard, did she ever go, Dom, what are you doing? Did you ever have any of that?
No, absolutely not. I think actually it was the other side of it. I've listened to a few of the podcasts already, and I probably lacked that father figure and that advice. As I say, I've listened to some of the previous podcasts, and some of that is good stuff, and some of that stuff that you probably don't want to receive or is not great for you. I didn't get that. My mum's main interest was that I was enjoying it, happy, and doing what I wanted to do, really. So in terms of pressure, there wasn't any pressure.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Looking back,
I think it was what I was lacking was that honest feedback from that figure.
Yes,
and that's something, as I say, that I wouldn't expect from my mum. But I do.
It's interesting, right? It's interesting when you think, because there's a balance, it's a fine line. It's like you think, don't have those conversations, but at the same time, if you don't, it might actually have an effect.
Yeah, I think that the probably the learning and the biggest takeaway is, and you see it all the time in the game now, but me being really transparent, I had this, is you obviously will get that feedback from coaching staff. You'll get that tough love. And at the time, I certainly didn't necessarily want it, receive it, like it. And I think it's really important that when you go home sometimes, you get that education around why you're getting that. And as I say, that was lacking for me. And that certainly didn't help me in terms of building that resilience in the moment. However, the experiences that I went through certainly did that for me longer term.
How did you branch from that into coaching? Did you do coaching or qualifications to transition onto this part of the career in football?
Yeah. So when I left Rushton, I went into the non-league route quite soon after and spent a period of time at Stamford, which was a local club to me. And that was where sort of the first opportunities came to coach. Soon after that, I then got another opportunity to coach within non-league club and very close here to here, Histon Football Club, and then works in schools, after school clubs, P's, lessons, going down that route. And that was my first taste of it. And being quite honest, I got the bug straight away, to the point where I enjoyed it more than playing. Loved helping people, loved the interactions with young players. And that was my first taste of it, and quite quickly made the decision that that's what I wanted to do and progress my career in that.
How did you branch onto the job where you are now?
I spent 4 years as a part-time academy coach at this football club, Cambridge United. I received the opportunity to coach part-time as an age group coach. And again, that was the next progression. And after that 4-year period of coaching part-time a wide range of different age groups, I made a decision that I needed to progress and do something different, to almost take that next step. So while I was coaching part-time, I set up my own company. Now, that company was designed really as at the outset to give grassroots players the opportunity to experience different aspects of the game that perhaps academy players do, but you might not necessarily get that if you're in grassroots football.
So it's like a showcase thing?
Yes, it's probably a little bit different to what a lot of showcases are now. I did it with a lot younger players. So I didn't branch into your under 15, 16s age groups. It started with the younger ones. And yeah, we gave them loads of different opportunities and experiences. And naturally off the back of that, players then started to progress to different academies around East Anglia. And again, the opportunity came from that to move that company across to Norwich City and set up a regional development program and work in the talent ID and recruitment side of things at that football club for 2 years. And then off the back of that, I then got the opportunity to come back to Cambridge United through Tom Pell, who was the academy manager before me, in the role of head of academy recruitment. So yeah, I had a real wide, varied experience through coaching and recruitment.
So you was one of those showcase-ish type of guys. You got rewarded for your eye for talent, basically.
Yeah, I think that certainly was my road into talent ID and recruitment, that's for sure. Yeah, when I set that company up, the aim, the ambition was really to drive grassroots and football in the area that I was working in and create further opportunities for players. And as I say, the rest sort of history.
Yeah. How long have you been at Cambridge now in this position?
So in this position, I've been here 3 years, just over 3 years now, and 6 years in total in full-time capacity.
Is there anything the job has taught you that you didn't think about before you got into the position?
Into the position that I'm in now as academy manager? Yeah, absolutely. I think the one that stands out is, well, there's so many different things that I've learned and sort of grown in the role, if you like. I think the first one is everything's about people. Yeah, everything's about people. Everything's about, in my opinion, treating people properly. And I think in this role, with the things that can be thrown at you, how you have to be so adaptable. Yeah, you have to have a real thick skin and resilience, because, as I say, day to day, different things can be thrown at you that if you haven't got that and you're not looking after yourself, it can weigh you down, and it'd be really difficult to react in a positive way. Yeah, they're two key things for me, really.
What category is Cambridge, and how do you become that category?
Cambridge is a Category 3 academy, became a Category 3 academy in 2014 when they were promoted out of the National League into League 2. You have to hit a certain level of standards, and you are audited by PJAC, which is the company used by the Premier League who provide the funding. The football club then have to hit the level of requirement for funding and positions as well.
Do you get great support from your owners for the academy?
Yes, I think over a period of time now that is increased. I think the investment that goes into the academy from, as I say, when we first promoted and became an EPPB academy to now, I think the growth is substantial. Obviously sat at our training ground now, which has had considerable investment over the last couple of years. And I think as we move forward, the appetite to continue to develop our own, to make sure that we provide a sustainable model as a football club, is crucial to the owners. So I think the lens and the appetite to continue to improve that is massive, and will only continue to increase.
I have to say something. I have to really credit you guys as a parent watching you in tournaments, even from when my boy was a younger age group to now. One thing that stands out at Cambridge is your coaching and the standard of the boys. It's spoken about in many different places. Oh, have you played Cambridge? Whew. They're something else. And you could go into a Cat 1 environment and people are saying that. Do you oversee the coaching strategies that you have, or because it's phenomenal what you guys are doing over there?
Yes, so I oversee the heads of department. So one of those heads of departments is our head of coaching and player development. So Liam Bloy is in that position, and he will have autonomy and responsibility for driving that coaching program. But obviously there's an academy management and leadership team that sits behind that. There's also a senior team above that in terms of the technical board that has to be passed through. And there's a lot of input into that, and that includes our phase leads coaches, and we work on a real multidisciplinary approach as well. So really kind words from you there in terms of our coaching program, but I think that
it's the truth.
Yeah,
it's the truth.
No, it's really well received, and it is nice to hear that recognition for that, because there's a lot of people that put a real a lot of hard work and time in when we're talking about categories. We've obviously resourced that some of those higher categories have that we don't necessarily have.
Yeah.
But it all comes back down to people and the commitment and the ability to want to go above and beyond, which is really crucial here. But yeah, going back to the multidisciplinary approach. So I think there's a real cross collaboration from the different departments that all intertwine and link into the end goal and what we're trying to achieve to develop those individuals both on and off the football pitch. And I think because of that, there's a real strong support network around the coaching from everyone, and everyone tries to be on the same page to make sure that we're delivering what we need to deliver for the best and for our players across all the different age groups.
So at Cambridge, do you have any restrictions when it comes to quarter bonds, like quarter ones, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four? Is there any requirements at the club that you think we more go for quarter one profile than the quarter four profile?
Yeah, so what I would say is it's something that we're really aware of. Jack Thorpe, who's come in this season actually as head of recruitment, he came in from Brentford. He was actually at Colchester prior to that as well. He's actually done a lot of work and a lot of research around that. So what I would say is there probably isn't some objectives as such as yet, but it's an awareness and it's a piece of work that is ongoing. I think being really transparent and honest around that subject. We are, in terms of data, quite heavy on Q1s. It's improved. It's an awareness. We continue to look at that to make sure that we're ultimately giving players the opportunities and learning. And obviously there's that in terms of, the quartile of birth. And then there's also the topic around late developers and how you integrate them into your program to ensure that you play the long game and you're not just looking at a short game as well. So they're two big topics that we're continually looking to develop and improve as a program to ensure that we're recruiting firstly and then developing the players that really have the opportunity to go and obviously try and seek a career in the game.
What is youth development to you then?
Yeah, I heard you ask this question on one of the other podcasts, and it made me actually, I think I was on the school run and listening to it. Yeah, I was sort of, how would I answer that question? I think, what is youth development? Firstly, youth development for me is we've got a responsibility and I guess a privilege to develop the next generation holistically. So as people, as I heard myself saying at the start of our conversation, if it wasn't for my time in academy football, albeit it wasn't all the way through from under nines to the other end, if it wasn't for that journey, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So that's what it can achieve. But it's ultimately for me in this role and for us as a staff, it's making sure that when someone leaves our program at whatever point that is, they can look back at their journey and say, and it might be that they need a little bit of time before they can do it. It might be that they do it straight away, but they can look back at the journey and go, I really enjoyed that. I grew loads. I had loads of experiences, loads of opportunities, and it set me up for the real world, because ultimately everyone's going into the real world. Whether that's with a professional playing career or not, people need to have the opportunities and the experiences that can prepare them for what they're going into. So that's what I'd say youth development is from a wide approach. And then from a footballing approach as well, I'd say that they go hand in hand. I think there's so many life skills and lessons that you learn from playing football that can set you up for going into employment, dealing with people socially, how to handle certain situations, the pressure that it can provide at times, the resilience that it builds. I think academy football, if you get it right, can be amazing for players. But I think it all starts with the story that you tell and the education that you try and provide, so that when someone steps into the building, they know what the opportunities are, and that it's so vast and not just about one dream of playing the game professionally. That's not necessarily from the player's point of view. That's probably more from, particularly at the younger age groups, with players coming in, of educating the parents around what they're doing this for. Because if you get it wrong, it can also have some real negative effects. But if you get it right, the journey can be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. So do you value development or results?
I think Development, 100%. You've got to have a balance as you go through the age groups. And what I mean by that is, particularly at the top end, ultimately you're going to be going into a senior environment where you have to win games. So one thing that we do, obviously, to bridge that gap is we heavily use our loan strategy and the opportunity for work experiences for our players in our PDP program. We use that quite early as well for a number of reasons, to make sure that the players and specific individuals who we feel need that stretch get it, which they wouldn't get in under 18s football. So they learn to win and they learn to perform to win. Below that, and in the younger age groups, you've got to make sure that you're continuing to develop all the different facets that they need within the game. One of our critical success factors is providing a diverse games program. So that could be on a Tuesday evening going to play a non-league club at a non-league ground in really horrible weather against a really difficult opposition that they might not be used to playing. And then on a
So
Saturday,
it's calculated.
yeah, and then on a Saturday, it could be that we go and play at Disneyland in unbelievable facilities where the pitches are carpet and everything you've got there is a dream. And then for that individual player, the next day or the next week, they might be training with the first team, so they've got the demands of that. So it's giving them a real balanced program and setting them up for all eventualities that they're going to deal with if they go and have a professional career, but also if they don't and they obviously have a non-league career. I think in terms of development as well, we obviously speak about game models, principles of play, playing philosophy, but ultimately we've got a real individual focus here. So it's creating that model and that philosophy to ensure that our individuals are developing what they need. So as they go through the age groups and they progress through the phases, they're at a level that they should be, whether that's technically and the ability to handle a football under pressure, whether it's the ability to make decisions under real fatigue and pressure, and they're physically robust and mentally strong to deal with the demands of the game. So yeah, to answer your question in a nutshell, development, but I do think results come hand in hand in that at certain stages.
So have you seen any of the boys go out on loan and it have a negative effect on them?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say negative effect, like it hasn't worked. But
it hasn't worked and they've come back not the same player that left, basically. And what do you think that is down to if it hasn't worked?
I think that goes back to the education. So from the player's point of view, it might be a perception of it hasn't worked because they haven't played or they got into the team and then they obviously were dropped and then didn't get back into the team or their form wasn't great. But my honest belief is there's no bad experience. That's what the loan generally is for, because I've seen it many times where in academy football and the journeys, players have had so much success throughout their individual journey and they hit a point and it's usually that transition between youth team football, particularly at our Cat 3 level. And it's like, oh, I'm no longer the best player. How do I deal with that? So we actually set our players up to make sure that they get failure and adversity and real challenge in their journey.
Interesting.
Now, we do that obviously really carefully, and we need to make sure that we obviously provide a real high level of support around that. So Callum Langley, Harsh Joshi are two individuals that look at our sort of player care, welfare, education, lifestyle. But what I would say is we've got a real good culture here of everyone has an input into that and supporting those players with what they need. I'm not saying we get it right all the time, but there's a conscious effort to try and provide that. But we have to create that challenge and that adversity, because there's no getting away from that is what they're going to go into, obviously, in this game and going back to the real world in general. It's not easy. So that is where the journey can have real input.
So then that comes down to a word you've been saying quite often in these past moments is resilience. What does that mean to you?
I think resilience is something that you have to be able to withstand all sorts of different challenges and pressures that come. That could be something that you're dealing with internally. It could be something that you're dealing with externally, but you've got to have the toolkit and the makeup to be able to cope with that. Now, you're only going to do that through experience and opportunity. And if at every moment that opportunity's stopped because that player's being protected and not being allowed to struggle, then that's not going to create the opportunity for them to build that resilience.
So you think a player needs it?
Needs resilience?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone needs it. In my job, I
Right.
need it. Obviously, said at the start in terms of what did I learn about the role. Ultimately, you're responsible for a team of people and a lot of players. So if you haven't got that resilience to withstand the challenges and the pressures that come with it in this job, you're going to struggle. So I think everyone needs it. And I think when I look at sort of the academy program, that would be probably something that I'm quite critical of, with the structure in terms of when we recruit young, and I'm talking generally here, we recruit the best player, the players that run rings around people. They then play lots of time. They have lots of success. And as I say, there comes a point where that will stop, or they will hit their first obstacle and a real challenge. I'm just being really transparent from my opinion here. It's probably less at Cat 3 just because of the resource that we can offer. But I think at times we do too much for players. We try everything, and again, I'm talking generally here. We do everything we can to recruit players into the system. We then do everything we can to keep them in our clubs, and that might be incentives, whatever that might be, to try and do that. And ultimately, I question whether that's what they really need. Yeah, I think in terms of talent development and the long-term development of players, I think we can certainly look at how we can ensure that the system continues to give players what they need for the long term.
Do you think sleep is important to performance?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Why is that?
I think the demands of the game, particularly these days, the modern game, in terms of how athletic it is, how much ground they cover, the speed of the game, being able to perform to your highest level. If you don't get enough sleep, recover and rest appropriately, I think first and foremost, you won't be able to consistently perform to that level. You won't be able to train to that level. And when we're talking about young players making the step up from youth development into the senior game, you might only get one opportunity. And if you don't look after yourself and rest, recover, eat, and do all the things behind the scenes that people don't see, that might be your opportunity gone.
Nutrition, is that important as well? Your diet in relation to performance?
Yeah, it's crucial. It's crucial. Sleep and nutrition, two massive things, in my opinion, as we said, for the reasons of performance, but also I think if you don't look after yourself, and that is sleep and nutrition again, like there's a risk of injury. And if you're not fit and you can't play, that will have a detrimental effect on your opportunities and career and what you can do.
At Cambridge, do you guys do academy tours? And if you do, what is the benefits you find of academy tours?
Yeah, we do. It's something we've done for a very long time, which predates me. I've had the opportunity and been fortunate to go on them as a part-time member of staff, full-time member of staff. But yeah, it's something we've done for a long time. We've built up a lot of relationships with individuals sort of across Europe and get invited to some brilliant tournaments, again, without sort of underselling ourselves for us and the level of club that we are, some of the teams that we will go and compete against. Yeah, it's quite remarkable, really. But in terms of the tours, it is so much more than just the football. The opportunity to go and spend the weekend with your fellow peers, learning about new cultures, having to socialise sort of 24/7 with your peer groups. Again, it's an opportunity to spend a real core period of time with the players, educating them around different aspects such as sleep and nutrition that we just spoke about. Again, creating the environment that we want to around struggle, around challenge, around success, getting a blend of that and making sure that you're providing the players with what they need. And then because you're with them over a period of time consecutively, you can then look at how you work with those individuals on dealing with those successes, dealing with those challenges and them setbacks, and seeing who can come through that, seeing who might need a little bit more support because of that. The tour program, in my opinion, is the unique selling point for us in terms of what we provide as a football club, because I think the benefits are huge. I absolutely love it. I went on tours as a young player. We're talking about the benefits, but ultimately one thing that's for sure is the memories that you create as well. I look back at the tours that I went on as a young player, and you still talk about them with people that you're still in contact with today. So yeah, they're absolutely brilliant.
Have you seen at your time at Cambridge a difference between grassroots players and academy players? So, for example, a player comes in from grassroots to your club. Some you will say, yep, straight away he's the level, and then others you'll be like, they're not quite. What differences have you seen, if you've seen any?
Yeah, I think there can be some like pros and cons to it. I think sometimes actually the fact that players haven't been in a system, I quite like that they come in and they have that raw edge. They might not necessarily have had that individual coaching and that technical coaching, but they've had that freedom to obviously express themselves and maybe develop their personality a little bit more. So I think sometimes it can actually be a real positive. I do also think there's no getting away from, if you haven't sort of had that coaching time and you come in late, that can also have a knock-on effect in terms of being able to adapt. So I've seen both sides of it, but we've had huge success over a number of years now. Like the majority of our recruitment will come from grassroots football, and there's some exceptional talent out there.
I like the word you said, adapt. What are they adapting to?
So I think if you were to go and watch grassroots football on the park, you naturally are going to get mixed ability. So you're going to get some players obviously of a higher ability than others. I think when you come into academy football, you would like to think generally the level of ability of each individual is going to be of a certain standard, and naturally then the speed of the game will increase. You have to think quicker. You have to physically be able to cope with the demands. And then there's the tactical side of it as well. So there's quite a lot that you have to adapt to. And that's something that we're really conscious of when we bring players in to the system, that we can't be making snapshot judgments on players, because we might be judging someone that's just come off the park in that grassroots football that's had zero experience of academy football against someone that might have been with us since 6-7 years old, who's had that whole process all the way through. So the training age is obviously very different, but the potential could be far greater in that lad that's just come into the building now.
How many days a week do you train and play at Cambridge?
Yeah, so our foundation phase will train on a Tuesday evening, a Thursday evening, and then we give them alternative Saturdays so that they sometimes will get that, well, every other week will get that free Saturday to be a child, go and do what they want to do, spend time with their family, etc.
Was that from 9 to 12s?
Yes, yeah. And then 13s will train Monday evenings. They will have a gym session. The gym sessions 14s upwards. Thursday evenings, again, Saturdays. Some will play their games on Saturdays, but if they were playing their games on Sundays, they would train on Saturday.
Do you have to deal with any consistent lateness at the club? And what's your take on players showing up late, or they show up late and they're rocking up to training, just walking to training whilst the session is going on? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it again comes down to understanding and education. So I think in terms of lateness, I think it's making sure that we understand as a club the situation, and if there's anything that we can do to support that situation, the length of time that player might have been at the football club. So if they've only just come in, they're adapting to the demands of the travelling, the commute, the commitment. I think that's really important. There's no getting away again from what you're preparing them for. So if a youth team player is late to training and they are going with the first team that morning, again, that might be the opportunity missed. So if you're looking at the bigger picture, when we're talking about life and being successful, they're the traits that you want to obviously ingrain in people. But I think it's making sure that you give people the chance and the education to show that they can obviously grow and improve with that understanding and that education, and knowing what's in the control of the player and what's not in control of the player. And then, as I say, how we can support the player and the family if that's needed.
Do you ever have situations where you have a parent being difficult because their boy is being played out of position at all?
I wouldn't say I do specifically in terms of issues come to me with regards to that, but I'd be very naive if I was to say that there aren't conversations or frustrations that happen around that.
How do you guys or your coaches deal with that?
I think it's, and I hear myself saying it a lot, but I think education is a huge part of that. You can obviously do that so much, and there's obviously got to be that buy-in as well. But if people can see, one, or understand, one, the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, and two, I think case studies are another good example of that. So if we've got the opportunity to share case studies where it's been a success and we've looked at players' journeys, I think that's another sort of real good way of educating the parents around the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. They would be some aspects of what we do to try and sort of educate both parents and players on those reasons.
So you said you've spoken about education. Do you guys liaise with schools a lot?
Yeah, so Harsh Joshi, who I mentioned previously, he's our head of education. So he is tasked with ensuring that we build relationships with schools, and that is through our schoolboys, just obviously the top end in terms of under 15s, 16s, but that's right the way through to ensure that we can support in any way. We appreciate that academy football is a huge demand. Players obviously travelling to and from training, sometimes getting home late, etc. So I think building those relationships with the schools are paramount. And then if we've got a knowledge and a relationship of the schools, if any issues crop up where we can help and work together to ensure that we're helping the players as much as possible, that's something that is really important to us.
How do you deal with release and retain periods? You in particular, how do you cope with that emotionally?
I think I'm quite empathetic to it. I spoke about my time at Rushden and Diamonds. I remember I was released from the football club on my 16th birthday. That's obviously something that sort of not sticks in my head.
With you.
But again, like when you go into a role like this, you can certainly empathise with players when you're sat in the meetings and delivering news that players don't want to hear. The meetings are never nice, and there's obviously no getting away from that. Telling a player that their journey or their times over at this football club's never nice. We work with players over a considerable length of time, so you obviously the coaching staff in particular and the multidisciplinary staff get to know these players and their families. I think, again, it all starts at the beginning of the journey. So one thing I'm a strong believer in, and I'm not saying we always get it right, but one thing that we do at the very or try to do at the very start of everyone's journey is let them know that at some point you're going to leave Cambridge United, whether that's being released as a schoolboy, whether that's being released as at the end of your scholarship, whether it's not getting a scholarship, whether you go on to become a young pro and then unfortunately get released once you've made it into the senior environment, or after you go on to make 150 appearances. Like at some point you will leave the football club, and that's something that we're big on, ensuring that players understand that and parents and families understand that as well. And the other thing as well is it's only our opinion when we make those decisions in terms of letting players go, and we're big on that as well, because one player might not fit Cambridge United, but they certainly might go on and progress elsewhere. And we see that as a success as well. We don't see that as I think sometimes there can be a bit of a stigma or a narrative, oh, you got that wrong. But actually that might have been the best thing for that individual. The environment might not have been right for them. They might have been here for a considerable length of time and they need a change of environment or change of people. And an example of that this year is from our under 16 group, 3 players that we didn't offer scholars to got scholarships at other clubs. So that's a huge success for us. And we celebrate that as much as we would do players obviously getting a scholarship internally. So yeah, as I say, it's never nice. The meetings aren't nice, but the process is the most important thing. And if you can get the process right leading up to those meetings, as I say, they're not nice, but they certainly more manageable if you get the process right before that.
Do you speak to the first team manager a lot to let him know who's coming through and who you should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, we're very blessed here that we spend most of our days and weeks in the same building. So both formally and informally, we will have conversations. Most of my conversations, or more of my conversations, will be with the director of football in terms of planning for the long term. But yes, the manager or head coach will have knowledge of those players that are obviously coming through, and we try and put a number of things in place to make sure that those players aren't just pictures on a tactics board or face on a presentation, and they actually know them. We're looking at different things in terms of this season just finished. We've created a bit of an emerging talent group to allow that our players get access to coaching from the senior staff, which is quite unique. That the whole objective around that was to ensure that the first team staff know those players in terms of having a bit more of a relationship and understanding of them rather than, as I say, it just being a name on a board.
Have you seen any distractions and lack of disciplines that is stopping potentially really good players becoming pros?
I have, yeah, I definitely have, but I think it's getting that balance. So naturally, when we go back to talking about some of the disciplines, as in daily disciplines, so diet, nutrition, sleep, being on time, all those things that you need to be a success in whatever you do, they're probably the biggest ones.
Distractions?
And in terms of distractions, I think when you obviously progress towards the top end, so I'm talking more PDP, probably under 16s, trying to gain that scholarship. I think the obvious distractions there are the opportunities that are sort of put in front of players that their friends will be doing.
What, like partying and clubbing?
And just generally, like when you're preparing for a game or you've got to go to training, whatever it might be, you're missing out on the opportunities, or feel like you're missing out on the opportunities that your friends and your peers are obviously getting. So yeah, there's no quit, and I don't think that's changed. I think that was the same obviously when I was younger as well, and I think ultimately the sacrifice and the ability to want to stay focused and dedicate yourself to what you're doing is huge. Some of these young players that we're talking about, they have to move home at 16, 17 years of age if they're moving into accommodation. And yeah, there's huge sort of life-changing events that you have to be empathetic to and understand and educate the players. But also I think it's really important that you don't try and create robots. Allow people to have their own personalities, and it has to be intrinsic. Like we can't, like ultimately, we know the statistics, we know obviously the success rates, etc. Like it has to come from within, and you just have to try and create the right environment for those players and the program to allow them to flourish. But for some, it will be that they can put everything into that, and that's for them. And for others, that won't be the case. But as I go back to my original point, it's really important for us that when they leave or their journey ends with the football club, that we've set them up for going into whatever they want to go into.
Yeah. No, I asked that, Dom, because when I was younger, I didn't get told about distractions. And there were certain things where if you had a talent, you wouldn't think, oh, partying and just going out and doing this and is going to have an effect. So that's why I asked those questions, just so if there are any young players listening, they can't say they didn't hear it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, well, like our coaching staff, our staff all around, our players will be educating and developing their life skills is a huge thing for us. Make no mistake, we'll obviously make sure that we're providing that education, but there ultimately comes a point when the decision will be with the individuals. And as you say, you have to give them the information and help them, but ultimately, like, it's got to be autonomous, and they've got to take that advice.
Yeah. So I know throughout my time as my boy was young, I know you guys have development centers, and you've also in those development centers, I believe you do still, right?
So our development center is part of the football club. Yes.
Yeah, and from Grassroots, you always knew Cambridge amongst there were one or two clubs, but Cambridge is one of them who have a very high standard in your development centers. Do you have a quota of those players that you take on every season? How do you transition that to academy football?
To sort of give you a brief synopsis of what the pathway looks like. The entry level is the development centres. We then have our elite centre. Both programs are run by our youth development program, so they're not specifically run by the academy, right. But the opportunities and the pathway for those players is exceptional. Jake Hammond, who's our talent ID officer for under 7s through to under 13s, will have a real strong responsibility for knowing those players and obviously creating opportunities and pathways for them to be seen and progress into the academy if we feel that that's the correct route and correct timing for them. However, we've come away slightly from the measure how many we get into the academy, because I think that then puts a little bit of a false narrative on whether we're doing well or not in that aspect. I think yeah, as soon as you probably put a measure on it like that, you're setting yourself up for failure, because if the players aren't ready to come into the academy, then you can't take them for the sake of hitting that measurement, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say is we've had huge success over a number of years of players coming through that system or them systems into the academy. And one thing I must mention on that as well is we also have and use that as a brilliant sort of exit route, if you like, for those players leaving the academy, to ensure that they're still affiliated with the football club if that's what they want. And we have a fantastic college program in partnership with CRC, Cambridge Regional College, as well, for players that might not get a scholarship at the football club but still want to continue their education alongside playing football. So yeah, they're both brilliant in terms of the entry into the academy, but they're also superb in terms of providing an exit option out of the academy as well.
What do you think of data in football?
I think it's certainly, I wouldn't profess to be an expert in the area, but what I would say is I think using it correctly and a way of informing it is really important. I would say, yeah, using it as a way of finding different aspects out is crucial. You've got to make sure that you're using it to inform your decisions, but not making your decisions on that alone. That's sort of how I'd summarize that, I guess.
Okay. How do you feel when you see boys come through the academy and the scholar system and go through and become pros under your tutelage, if you want to call it that, under your time period? How have you felt in regards to that?
Yeah, I think in terms of the tutelage, what I would say is there's so many people that obviously impact a player's journey. And particularly for players that have come all the way through, there would be staff that aren't here any longer that have obviously had a huge part in that. But I think that transition, which ultimately is the hardest thing, and seeing players forge a career. So I'm not talking about debuts, but being able to forge a career and seeing them develop as people is why we do it. So yeah, in terms of how I feel and how it's been when I've seen that happen, yeah, the overriding feeling is pride, but probably more so because you know what has gone on behind the scenes. You know that it's not been plain sailing. You know that players have obviously had to go through setbacks, whether that's injuries, whether that's releases and then come into the program, whether that's being dropped and going again. Yeah, that's what creates that pride, because you know the journey most certainly hasn't been easy, but they've managed to despite all the odds, keep going and get the success from it.
What do you look for in a scholar at Cambridge? What traits do you think a scholar needs? What traits do you think a player needs to become a scholar at Cambridge?
Yeah, so in terms of values, so we have 3 values that have been sort of ingrained in the academy for a long time. So the first one's hardworking. That's staff and players aligned. I don't think you become a success at this football club if you're not a grafter, if you don't work hard. The next one's honesty. So that's a crucial one. And we look for that in, as I say, both players and staff alike. The final one's humility. So when we're recruiting and obviously developing individuals, humility is key for us, and that sort of runs all the way through the football club. So that
within their characteristics.
Yes, yeah, and displaying humility on a daily basis as well. I think that's something that as a club we really sort of pride ourselves on. And then in terms of players, yeah, I think you could go into what it looks like from a positional aspect, but I think sort of just focusing on characteristics, probably a lot of what we've already spoke about, really, that ability to dedicate yourself, to demonstrate the stuff we've talked about around being able to withstand challenges, being able to keep going when it's tough, mentally strong attitude. I think vulnerability is also a really important thing, though, and being able to build that relationship, which comes from staff as well, because it's a challenging time and it's tough. But yeah, there's some of the aspects. And naturally, when we're talking about ability, they've got to be of a certain level to be able to come in. Ultimately, we're trying to bridge the gap. And one of our challenges is the fact that we don't have a 21s at category 3. So when we are recruiting, we are looking naturally at the bigger picture in terms of who can go and affect the first team in 2, 3, 4 years' time, which isn't easy, but that's why we have the program in place that we do as well.
So when you say hard working, you're talking about on and off the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What does a hard worker off the ball look like to you?
Simplistically, it's the ability to make sure that you're able to run back as much as you are forward.
Okay.
So we see it all the time, don't we? As soon as we're in possession, we want to run forward and score a goal. But have we got that same mentality when we're out of possession, or we lose possession in transition and we've got to run however many yards to win the ball back? So I think being prepared to do that, but it is also working smart and ensuring that we do the hard yards in transition, for example, to ensure that we don't have to do the bigger running. But yeah, it's first and foremost, it's the characteristics and to want to do that need to be demonstrated.
Yeah, definitely. I see basically right now, if a player comes through, the player will go straight to the first team. The first team manager will get all the praise. You play a pivotal part in the club. So what is it that you do that people don't get to see on a day-to-day basis?
In terms of specifically around players or?
Players and just your role in general. This is why I started this. Academy managers have such a vast role in the club, and I don't think people appreciate what you do on a daily basis.
So I think a big thing with regards to my role is I'm dealing with, or I spend a lot of time with staff, whether that's recruiting staff and then I'm managing staff and sort of mentoring, if you like, and working with those departments and heads of departments to ensure that we deliver on our sort of objectives and our vision and mission of what we're trying to achieve as an academy. So I think as sort of an overarching, that's what we do. And some of that's mentoring those individuals and helping them to obviously work with their staff to make sure that the operation is running effectively day to day. There's a lot of things that can sort of come up on your plate. So it's making sure that, I guess, you're anticipating and making sure that you identify things quite quickly to again make sure that the operation is running smoothly. And parents and staff all know where they need to be. They understand what we're trying to achieve, and then I guess it's the informal stuff as well. So having those informal conversations, updating people on where we're at, any issues that we've got, any challenges that might be happening. Communication is the biggest thing, and in making sure that the relevant stakeholders are informed. But ultimately, the job is protecting and looking after the academy on a day-to-day, but medium and long-term as well, and setting that vision so that everyone can obviously buy into it and knows where we're trying to get to.
Do you enjoy it?
I love it. I do love it. I would be lying if I said there were days where it challenges you and it really stretches you. But I love the varied day to day. I love being able to influence and develop people, and that's staff as well as players. I love being able to provide the opportunities. Yeah, very fortunate and very privileged to be in the position. And yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy it.
What challenges would you tell me if I wanted to come into the job and say, you need to avoid that, mate, because you're going to have sleepless nights if you're not ready for that?
Yeah, I think, again, everything starts with people and the culture. And I think if you've got a clear identity and what you want to try and create, I think that makes your job a lot easier. And when we talk about values and what our values are, I think that helps that, because you then know what you're recruiting into the building and what you want to create as an environment on a day-to-day basis. And if you have those people working with you, ultimately my job's easier because I have great people with me, and my job would be 10 times harder and 10 times challenging if I didn't have the exceptional practitioners that I have working with me, but have got those characteristics to go above and beyond. And ultimately, that is what creates the program that we have.
Final 4 questions, all in one. What qualities do you need to be a good academy player, academy scout, academy coach, and academy manager?
Player 100% is that ability to keep going when it's tough and after setbacks. So yeah, that ability the persistence to keep going.
Academy scout?
Probably similar, but I'm going to use the word patience. I've been in that position, and you get a lot of no's and a lot of setbacks. So I think that patience to keep going and use those sort of examples and those stories and those learnings to keep growing. But yeah, patience.
Academy coach?
Curious. Yeah. keep being curious, keep wanting to learn. Use the experience and expertise around you, open-minded, that real growth mindset. Stay curious.
An academy manager.
The ability to look after yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah, after yourself. I think it's very easy in this role to neglect yourself, but if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after other people.
Well said. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you'd like to say?
No, I think it's been a brilliant discussion. Really enjoyed it. And as I said, when we had the conversation before, I think it's brilliant what you're doing. And I couldn't agree more that I think in this position, you don't always hear from the academy managers and you don't always have that opportunity to sort of communicate with parents, players, and other stakeholders as much as you'd like. So I think it's a brilliant platform to educate on the work that's going on in academies. Yeah, and I've really enjoyed it. So thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you for coming, Dom. And thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. Hopefully, I will see you on the next episode. Take care.
This episode is sponsored by the PV Consultant, the go-to business strategist for salon owners and solo beauty professionals who want to grow smarter, not harder. If you're ready to boost your visibility and start attracting more clients today, download the PV Consultant's free Google cheat sheet at www.thepvconsultant.net/cheat sheet. It's packed with simple, powerful tips to get your business seen by the right people. A big thank you to the PV Consultant for supporting today's episode and helping more businesses shine.